If you want to shoot with a lens like this on a camera body like that, you definitely need this. This is the Viltrox mount adapter EF-M2 II speed boosting adapter to allow you to use full frame lenses on your micro four thirds cameras. I'm going to talk to you about why this bad boy needs to be in your kit. So let's roll. So, welcome back to the channel, guys. My name's Steven of Too Lazy for Google, and today we're talking about the Viltrox mount adapter and why this little bad boy is so crucial if you want to be able to use full-frame lenses on your micro four thirds cameras. So, you might be asking, well, what the heck is a speed boosting adapter and why do I need it? These are good questions, and the reason why you need a speed boosting adapter is if you want to adapt full-frame lenses onto a micro four thirds body to be able to utilize lenses from Canon, from Sigma, and from all sorts of full frame EF mount cameras. And these lenses, once you start using them, they are addictive. They're fantastic lenses and allow you to do all sorts of things from videography to photography. What exactly does this mount adapter do and what is it? This is an adapter that allows you to concentrate more light through its optical elements on both sides of the adapter onto a smaller sensor. So in this case, if you're rocking out a Lumix G9 or you're rocking out a GH5, you can utilize the adapter to adapt onto the lens to bring in more light onto that smaller micro four thirds sensor. So this little bad boy is a 0.71 times focal reducer. So as micro four thirds users, we're used to the fact that if you're shooting on a 16mm lens, the results essentially are ×2. So that 60mm becomes a 32mm lens. Well, with the focal reducer, you can think of a 50mm lens giving you a 35mm result. So what does all that do? It basically allows for a wider field of view or a wider look to your subject. So a focal reducer also gives you the ability of getting that f-stop down even further when you're adapting it onto the camera. So for example, on a Sigma 18 to 35mm lens like this, which is an f1.8, the results are almost like a f1.2. So you're getting a massive amount of light hitting your sensor. If you're shooting indoors, for example, and you're shooting with something where you need a wide field of view, these little adapters are awesome at being able to make that lens a wider field of view when you're working on your subject. Also, quick disclaimer, I'm not sponsored by Viltrox or Sigma or Lumix or any camera manufacturer for that matter, so these are all my honest opinions on gear I purchased with my own money, and hopefully tips that I can pass on to you guys that have helped me with filming videography and photography, and can definitely help you too if you're rocking out a micro four thirds camera. So there are multiple options if you want to be able to get a speed booster to adapt full frame lenses or EF lenses onto your micro four thirds cameras. There's the Metabones speed boosters, and there's also other different speed boosters by manufacturers. I find that Viltrox, which is a great company that makes all sorts of lenses and adapters for various cameras, really nailed it when it came to creating this EF-M2 mount. The biggest reason? Well, it's the price. Price is king, and in this case, you're only paying roughly about $200 to adapt some crazy glass on these micro four thirds cameras. In the case of a Metabones speed booster, that price can be approximately $500 to $700 depending on where you're buying it. That's a lot of money to drop on an adapter to essentially adapt a lens. That's not even the lens itself. Whereas in this case, you're only paying about $200 to get the result that you need. So let's talk about the build quality of this little speed boosting adapter. I like it because it's all metal in terms of the metal construction of the adapted ring on the front to adapt it to the lens, as well as the adapted back of metal to adapt it to the camera. The construction is strong, it's sturdy, there's no loose parts. You have an aperture toggle on the side of it, which is kind of cool. And you can also adjust the infinity focus inside the adapter itself. So if you want to do some fine-tuning adjustments, you definitely can with the adapter. It also has a mounted bottom on it, and the mounted bottom allows you to give some clearance by adapting it onto your lens. And this gives you roughly like 1.5 inches of clearance space when you're adapting it onto your lens and popping it on your tripod. So it's nice to have a little boost of additional height when you're mounting your camera. How do you actually mount all these three things together, and also in what order should you do it? It might seem kind of simple thinking I just basically attach it to my camera, pop a lens on, and away you go. I'd say hold up for a second, let's go into specifics on how to properly do it. When you take these mounting adapters, I would always mount them to the lens first. So what I recommend doing, taking your adapter and doing the adapter to the lens first. line everything up, move over to get a bit of a click sound, and bada bing, bada boom, the adapter's on the lens. Next, we're gonna take the lens and we're gonna adapt it to the camera. So the lens now has the adapter on it. So basically just line up our points and away we go. You now have the lens properly adapted to the adapter, which is now properly adapted to the camera body. Because in this case, the Sigma 18 to 35mm lens, which is the reason why I got the adapter, in some cases heavier than the body of the camera itself. I mean, this is a hefty combo when you're using this. You don't want to be putting on a heavy lens, for example, onto a camera which has the adapter in it, because you might rip or damage the catchment guard of the Micro Four Thirds camera. So I'm going to show you some examples of this adapter in action using an 18 to 35mm lens on a GH5, which is a very traditional setup for using a Viltrox or a speed boosting adapter on a Micro Four Thirds camera. I'm just going to walk around, get different conditions, both in the light as well as in shadow, just to show you the effect of how this particular adapter can perform using some awesome glass. So let's talk about what I love about the adapter and what I don't like about the adapter. What I love about the adapter is, as I said before, the price. And the price is fantastic. I mean, you cannot go wrong at $200 on Amazon for this speed boosting adapter when you're looking to adapt EF lenses. It's strong, it's reliable. It gives you the option of being able to get at that manual aperture adjustment. It's got the additional 1.5-inch stand here. Essentially, it's a good, well-built adapter for the price that you're paying. One thing I definitely recommend when you're using a speed boosting adapter like the Viltrox, shoot with manual mode. I mean, I bought this adapter to use this particular lens. I find shooting in automatic mode, although it can do it, you do get a little conjunking sometimes with a lens that has a built-in motor to it. Just do yourself a favor and shoot in manual. Another wild thing about this particular lens adapter is it has built-in firmware. You can plug this into your computer and you can update firmware, but the question is, like, where does the firmware go? Because there's not really a little processor in this, unless it's hidden in the adapter ring. So if you know, leave a comment below because I'd love to find out. Both of these adapters are not native to the camera body, so you might run into problems from time to time when you're shooting. Sometimes Micro Four Thirds cameras can get a little temperamental and they might freeze, or they might not show that the lens is properly connecting to the camera. In many cases, fear not. Just essentially turn off your camera, pop out the battery, unhook the lens, put it back in again, start that combination up, and you should get a working result after you restart your camera. Now take also into consideration that these little bad boys are not weather sealed. So if you're shooting in different climates, if it's raining outdoors, you might run into issues if water gets between the adapter and the camera. So just be advised, you might want to cover up when you're doing some of your shooting. So speaking of weather sealing, I took this adapter, along with the Metabones at that time, down to the Caribbean when I took a trip in February. It was interesting to see the results and how the adapters performed when working with the G9 camera. I found that the Metabones Speed Booster did not like shooting in humid climates. For whatever reason, it caused my G9 to crash. When I used the Viltrox, I didn't have an issue. Now, I'm sure there's Metabones pundits out there who will fiercely disagree with what I'm saying, but I found the Viltrox to be actually more reliable if you're filming in really humid climates. I don't know if that's because of certain construction of the adapter itself. Maybe it was the fact that the Viltrox has a bit more robustness to the size, or the Metabones is thinner and more metallic. If you're shooting and you're trying to get results on a vacation, you don't want to fumble around with an adapter that won't mount the lens to your camera. What do you guys think? The Viltrox adapter, in my mind, is just a smart tool, both economically, build quality wise, and functionality if you want to be able to adapt those EF lenses onto that Micro Four Thirds cameras. So if you have access to EF glass and you want to be able to incorporate it when you're using your Micro Four Thirds cameras, definitely pick up the Viltrox mount adapter. It's smart, it's economical, it's practical, it's robust, it works well. It's just a good tool to have if you want to be able to incorporate that EF glass. And drop us a line below on what sort of camera setup do you use? Do you rock out speed boosters? Do you use EF glass? What kind of combinations do you use? What kind of micro four thirds cameras do you use? We love hearing from you guys, as well as finding out tips and suggestions on how you do your photography and videography. And if you found this review helpful, please hit that like and subscribe button below so you can stay up to date on all videos we have coming out on tech and gear reviews and tricks on how you can get the shot you want on the budget that you got. So until next time, try shooting with a speed booster and an EF glass on your micro four thirds cameras. You might be surprised with the results. Arr.